You were saying that there's going to be no use of surveillance cameras unless there is a credible threat. But for an event that big, why not use every available tool that you have?
But we're operating off of the mayor's directive that we can proceed with the camera installation in the Pioneer Square Stadium area. However, we're not allowed to turn those cameras on unless there is a credible threat. So obviously, we're monitoring all of our channels. I'm speaking with the FBI almost weekly, looking at what threats we may have to the games. And so at the time that I think I need to make a case to the mayor on credible threats, I feel comfortable in doing so.
If the mayor had not given this directive, would that have been something that you would have automatically done, given that it is something that has been proven effective, for example, at the Northgate light rail station, where you were able to catch a suspect who was caught on CCTV?
Yes, as you know, the city council last year approved the expansion of our real-time crime center to three areas: the area in front of Garfield, as well as the Chinatown International District, as well as Pioneer Square. However, that was halted with the exception of the installation in Pioneer Square until the mayor's office could gather more data on the actual project.
Chief, I want to stay on this topic about cameras. I think recently you mentioned that 10 of last year's homicide cases were cracked because of footage caught on the real-time crime center cameras. And
that's correct.
So my question would be, if those cameras solved murders, what potentially is the cost to the community for turning them off?
Well, you know, the thing is, you cannot predict when and where bad behavior will be, but I will say that the placement of the cameras have been spot on. The cameras actually assisted in 17 homicide cases, but were able to help to solve 10 of those. And so they're very, very well placed, but this decision is out of my hands at this particular time.
Got it.
You know, we've given all the information that we can give. We have made the case, and my instruction to folks is to follow our existing rules, and we will allow the decision makers, policy makers, people who will be guiding the future of what real-time crime center will look like here in Seattle.
In today, your Our City, Our Safety 2026 community meeting tonight over at
Absolutely.
Miller.
Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Over at Miller Community Center on Capitol Hill. That East Precinct that comes up often obviously has seen a lot of crime statistics, if you will. Why is Capitol Hill so different? And what's your honest answer to residents who kind of feel like, yo, it's rough over here?
Well, it's a high volume neighborhood, a lot of traffic, a lot of foot traffic. It's a mixed use neighborhood. You have businesses and residential folks in the same space. A lot of issues with nightlife. Whenever you have nightlife and alcohol being served and people want to go out and have a good time, you will have crime and disorder. But I think the answer is the same anywhere in Seattle, and that is consistency. We have to be consistent on what we do in our approach. I placed or replaced the captains in all the precincts, and the captains were given a 4-year commitment. So they're putting long-term strategies in place to ensure that we stay consistent in our approach and we don't shift courses.
You are listening to the voice of Seattle Police Chief Shon Barnes here on the Gee Ursula Show. Speaking of neighborhoods, in the Magnolia neighborhood recently, there were multiple break-ins on the same night. And at least one business owner told KIRO 7 TV that police were called during the crime and they didn't show up. I want you to listen to this and then respond.
Going to the city and asking for police intervention here because on the night of the break-ins, my daughter arrived and called and they did not come.
In a situation like that, what should a business owner realistically expect right now, given your staffing?
Yeah, it depends on what is happening at the time. Obviously, those crimes that are life-threatening will take precedent. We can't predict when those happen, and when those happen, it will take us away from crimes that are property crimes or crimes when there's no threat to the person or to the business. That's certainly unfortunate, but we are working extremely hard to restaff our department. We're looking at different deployment models. We're looking at bringing in officers on overtime. We've done that before. And so, it's about service and it's about service delivery, and I'm committed to being better at that each and every day.
Chief, I want to go back to that question about our city, our safety, that community meeting tonight. What you want to talk about in that meeting?
Yeah, so what we do in those meetings is we talk about where the state of the neighborhood, the district is, the precinct is at that time. We talk about the things that we're doing well, and then we give the community the mic, and we allow them to talk in small groups and report back to us about what they want, and then we follow up with those meetings. So this is just the first meeting that we're having in East Precinct. We've done those in other meetings. The second meeting is, this is what we heard from you. We hear you, we see you, we are accountable to you, and then we're going to come back and present our plan and show the boots on the ground and what we've done to address those problems.
I want to go back to the discussion because there are it's not just Magnolia, but other business owners who have their businesses broken into and maybe feel like, why aren't we getting a response? I mean, what is your message? You said, we want to improve. What are response times? If it's not violent, should they expect any kind of response?
Well, it depends on the dispatch. People have to know that when you call 911, you're actually not calling the police department. You're actually calling the 911 dispatch center. And that dispatch center, which we call our care team, who does an amazing job, they will then dispatch us as the calls are prioritized. We don't self-dispatch ourselves. That's not our scope or body of work. When someone calls 911, they're not calling a police station or a police officer or a police car. Mm-hmm. They're calling a triage center, if you will, and that triage center will send the police as appropriate. But if there are life-threatening calls, they'll send us there first, and then they'll go down the list, and then they will dispatch us to where we need to be. So we're not self-dispatching. We don't know that that crime occurred or that that person has waited for 20 minutes or 25 minutes until we're dispatched. We're trying some different things where we're bringing in some of our specialty units to handle some of the low priority calls, what we call 3 and 4 calls, where they'll come in and they'll work. We have our SWAT team answering calls, our community response group, they're answering calls, and we're just trying to pitch in, and it is an all hands on deck approach to providing a better level of service here in Seattle.
Okay, I want to also talk to you about something that is a recurring problem. And now, just days after the city cleared homeless encampments from 3 Beacon Hill parks, the tents are already back. And, of course, neighbors are frustrated. And I want you to hear what one of them said to Como 4 News, and here's a chance for you to respond.
We need to have cops treating this as a beat situation. We need a solution. That solution is realizable. The time has come to act.
Now, what can SPD do, and what can you not do in these situations?
Yeah, so let me be clear. Police departments should not be involved in homeless removal or homeless policing. It has never worked in any police department that I've ever studied. It works best when you bring in other resources like our unified care team and other resources, and these some of our nonprofits that get a lot of funding to deal with this issue. They are best to deal with this issue. We're there to ensure that no one gets hurt, that the persons can be moved or relocated or found permanent housing if there's something that happens. But we should not own homelessness. Police officers are asked to do a lot, and this is one thing, and I think that we all agree. Also, it's important to note that our policy, the city policy that we all agreed to before I got here, says that there has to be a 72-hour notice and give people 72 hours to leave, and then the unified care team and other folks will come by and remove them. So there is a process, and it's a process that apparently we all agreed to.
You listen to the voice of Seattle Police Chief Shon Barnes here on the Gee Ursula Show. Ursula was talking about response times, and that led me to ask about staffing and how that's going. And I would assume that I think you're in the 900s right now, and I'm sure full staffing would probably be at around 1,300. Talk to us about how that's going.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. We're about 950, 958 now. We should be around 1,400. So my analogy is really, really simple. If you had a business and you operated your business on $1,400 a month, and every month you had $1,400, now all of a sudden you only have $900. What changes would you have to make to your business in order to keep the doors open? Would you have to perhaps change the way you provide service to people? Would you have to ask people to do more, to stay longer? What would be the effects of that business? And that's what I'm doing. I'm running a business, if you will, and I'm trying to manage the resources that I have with what we should have, which is around 1,400. But there is good news. Last year, we had a net of 94 officers. This year, we hope to have a net of about 86 officers. If we can continue that, then by 2029, we should be back to full strength. And my responsibility is to make sure that they're deployed appropriately, which is why we're doing things like the neighborhood resource officers who can specifically address some of those neighborhoods where we're seeing high crime and high crime areas and disorder, as well as some of our business communities where perhaps you don't have to wait 20 minutes. You can call that police officer that you know that will work your beat and wait for that person to come and handle your problem.
And Chief, I do want to end on a positive note, because this is something that you recently announced, what's going on at Magnuson Park, an area where they had previously seen an increase in crimes, and you dedicated a team of officers to handle the vast majority of calls, and there's been success.
Absolutely. The officers during our 90-day pilot were able to reduce crime by double digits. They were responsible for about 94% of all actions in or around the Magnuson Park neighborhood area. They were able to establish great relationships with the community. And now we have 3 dedicated officers to that area. This is really who I am at the core when it comes to being a police officer. For me, it is about smaller neighborhood ownership, beat cop, knowing the neighborhood, knowing the people. And as I always say, a good cop knows who the oldest person in the neighborhood is, and they know who just had a baby. And that is the kind of policing that I think we want.